Hello, and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Steven Universe Future, which we'll be talking about tonight. I'm your host, Alex Bonilla, and today I'm joined by Michelle Andrew.
Hello.
Sarah Potter.
Hello.
And Ellie Martin.
Hey.
Today we are discussing the final two Steven Universe episodes of 2019, Little Graduation and Prickly Pear. You can find our previous Steven Universe Future discussion at overlyanimated.com. You can find our Steven Universe feed on iTunes. Wherever you listen to us, we appreciate any ratings and reviews you want to leave us. You can also find us on YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated. But yeah, today we'll be wrapping up our year's discussion on Steven Universe Future with these two heavy episodes, I'd say. We're gonna begin with general impressions, and from there we'll branch out to see where the discussion takes us. But let's go to Sarah first. What are your general impressions after having just watched these two episodes?
These were very intense episodes compared to the episodes I think we've had so far. Not that the episodes before haven't been good, it's just these ones went really deep on this idea that Steven has no idea what he's doing right now, which is kind of, I think, a very teenager thing. Like, he doesn't know what he's going to do with his future. Like, he's being told, like, he can do anything, or he gets to choose now, and, like, he doesn't know anymore. And it's, I guess they're kind of, like, trying to, like, fit that into, like, just this age bracket of, like, what people feel at this age of 16. But it's also through the lens of this weird sci-fi fantasy stuff, which is fun, I guess. With fun sci-fi fantasy depression is always great. But obviously, I love seeing Lars and Sadie again. They were great. I loved the two songs we got from Sadie, and I like hearing her, the two songs. Seeing her angry and then seeing her, like, actually happy was really great. And then Prickly Pear is just so weird. I think I like the first one better. And obviously, the big thing for me was Shep was in this episode.
Yeah!
Who was very explicitly... they didn't say the word non-binary, but they used they, them pronouns. They called them Sadie's partner, and like it wasn't just like a one-off thing. Like Shep was present in the episode through the whole thing. It was really cool, and that's really awesome. And yeah.
All right. Michelle, how are you feeling after having watched these episodes just now?
I feel really bad for Steven. He is such an empty nester, and he's taking it really hard. And because like that's been he's had these people around forever, and I get that it's a big change, and he doesn't know what to do because since he was a baby, he had one goal, and that was to be a crystal gem. But maybe he doesn't have to be a crystal gem anymore. I agree with Sarah. I think Little Graduation was my favorite, maybe just because like I love Sadie so much, I love Lars so much. I love the fact that they did not end up together and they grew apart, and that's so normal, and they're both okay with that. Steve is the one who's not okay with it, which is also very in character because he shipped them harder than anyone else on the whole show. Prickly Pear. Yeah, well, now we know what's up with the Cactus Steven, and I guess, like, I'm really surprised, because I was assuming from the intro that all these, like, Aquamarine and, like, the evil-looking Lapises and Eyeball and Jasper and the Cactus were all gonna band together, and maybe they won't, except we still have the worm thing, so that's, like, the one thing that's missing. But like maybe actually they are. Maybe these are just going to be kind of self-contained, and the bigger thing is just like Steven moving on / dealing with his anger magic power. And I'm kind of okay with that. Yeah.
That's really like in line with all the trailers we've got of Steven Universe, where like everyone's like, oh, these are the big villains, and then like, no, they're not.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk a little bit more about the presence of Cactus Steven in the intro, because that is a weird thing for this to culminate to.
I mean, the Lapises were there too.
Yeah. And I think we can, if we dig into things they have in common, we'll probably find stuff. But Allie, let's go to you. How are you feeling after these episodes?
Pretty good. I mean, I have been expecting this to kind of come not at the end of the season, obviously, because now we know we're getting more episodes. But I've been waiting for them to get more into like Steven's feelings, also mixed in with the new powers that he's beginning to find. I don't know if like I loved Little Graduation, but it's weird to me because he has been. That's what the show has always been about, change. So it's weird to me that he's uncomfortable with it at certain times. But it makes sense. Like Michelle, what was that term? Empty nester is like the perfect term for what Steven is. It's adorable, but it can be toxic, like Shep said, and also they were fantastic. I love them too. Sadie is amazing, and I also loved her like new dynamic with Lars. I have to say I didn't expect it because I was on that ship, but it also makes complete sense, and it was done very well. I think it's good. What was it? Prickly Pear. I think I liked it more than the first one, just because it's they make this character known now because it's going to be part of the evil gang that we keep seeing in the trailers, like you both said before. But it was a weird one. It was really weird. I think my highlight of it was Amethyst eating the dirt out of the sack.
Oh, man.
Was, like, the best part.
I'm glad you picked that as one of your initial thoughts.
It's just looking at it as, yeah, that's me watching this episode.
Okay, fair. Yeah, my initial thoughts. Both of these episodes, like, look, am I gonna say that these are the best episodes of Steven Universe? Probably not, but are they some of the most emotionally distressing episodes of Steven Universe I've ever watched?
Aww.
Yes. Which kind of does make them the best.
Well,
yeah.
In a way,
to be fair, I think that's a valid way of looking at it, because these are like the emotions that Steven is expressing in the. I mean, Sarah called it like sci-fi depression, right? And like it is kind of wrapped in this universe, but at the same time, these emotions are very grounded in things that normal people have to deal with all the time, and it's very tough and confusing when you deal with them for the first time. And Steven, like, technically he's older in this universe, but he's still surrounded by people older than him, so he's still immature in certain ways.
Is like such a weird age.
Yeah.
16.
And you can tell that everyone else like understands that, and they're giving him that like they're giving him that like I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but like they understand he's 16 and he's facing these new feelings, and they're like, we've been there, we just were there. Like, this is it, right?
Millions of years ago.
Right. It's the most wholesome environment you could possibly have to deal with these kind of potentially self-destructive behaviors that one potentially goes through. And so seeing Steven work through that and like have to deal with the consequences, it hurts, but also it feels very, very connective. And the guts to end this episode and entering a hiatus with just that dread hanging over Steven, like, how do I deal with the consequences of this situation? And that's how we're going to be until we get new episodes whenever in 2020. Like, that's a very morbid way to end this batch, but also it fits the teenage angst angle we've been hitting from the season premiere here. So I think that this all fits very much with the tone of the season. It was executed really well. Little Graduation, I agree that the introduction of Shep as well as the Sadie Lars handling was also very good, and Prickly Pear. The weirdness of Cactus Steven is, I think, fitting with classic, Steven Universe monsters. But I think that Steven himself is the connector between these two episodes, and the character that, especially in these two episodes, feels like a turning point. I guess we can focus on that first, on just like the connection between these two episodes, because in general, we've already talked a little bit about Steven not being, what's the word? Not being receptive necessarily to all the changes going on around him. And here we see a culmination of that with his friends drifting apart, and B, dealing with new emotions that now other people know, and he didn't, and stuff that was supposed to be inner and is now outer, and how to deal with that situation. Sarah, how do you feel these episodes? I guess do you have any additional Steven thoughts on how they portrayed him in these two episodes?
despite all like the fantasy and sci-fi stuff, I think this is just a very straightforward teenager story. Like, I'm not saying that in a bad way. I think there's nothing wrong with having all these fantastical elements and keeping your core something people understand. It's something that people relate to. And I think that's good. And I think Steven's generally just having this situation where he's growing up and he's realizing his parents, he's trying to be independent from his parents. And that's an emotion a lot of teenagers have to deal with. And right now he's in that phase where he's like lashing out, and it's not good. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for the Gems or Steven, but it's something relatable. And it's something that I think a lot of teenagers go through and a lot of people and families go through. And I am fine with this being a straightforward that type thing, because we get to have this fun sci-fi coding to it where like we have this giant cactus monster on top of it. Like it's not, it gives it this fresh feeling to it, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And also with Little Graduation, right? You have the general feeling of, I don't want my friends to leave and drift apart.
Yeah.
And we see it physically manifested in the form of a giant pink dome. And like that it gets constricting, tighter and tighter as a metaphor for the potential.
But I think that's
stranger.
also like a simplification of Steven's feelings, because that's like just Shep having only known Steven for so little of time. Like, I think there's also this big component of, when you're younger, when you see people, you think that the world you see is the way it's going to be forever. And like a big world shift for a lot of people growing up is that you realize that was just the world I was in when I was young. It felt permanent because I was young, and that's it. Like, the permanence of like relationships and the permanence of friends being around and people living certain places is not as permanent as it looks when you're 12 even. And now Steven's grown up and he's realized like, oh, people aren't tethered to Beach City. They aren't tethered to me. And that's, I think, a thing that's like kind of, I think that deeper feeling is kind of glossed over with the idea of just he doesn't want his friends to move away. Because that seems like a little bit of a simple, almost like a, I don't know the words again, is I'm missing it, but it's just like, it doesn't feel like it fully encapsulates how much Steven feels here.
Okay. Allie, how do you feel about how the show represented his emotions in Little Graduation? I guess we can focus on that episode first. But how do you feel about how the show represented that there?
I definitely agree with what Sarah said at the very end there, that they're not like, it doesn't really get to the bottom of like why Steven is feeling the way he is. Because like I said before, he's always been about like, he promotes change in himself, but then like, when it happens with other people and he doesn't expect it, he gets, obviously over emotional about it, just because that's what happens when you form relationships with people. Like if it's romantic or not, or like friendships or whatever, just people you know. But I also expected that because he's an empath. It's just how he is. I thought it was done well. It seems not like overdone, but just because, well, not to say that because obviously stuff like this doesn't stop happening no matter how old you get. Like he's 16, it happens to people who are in their like 30s, 60s, but it does feel like we've seen a lot of this kind of thing. So maybe that's the one complaint I'd have with it, but I still enjoyed it a lot. I think it was done very well. Like nothing was like out of character, I guess, but I think I'm a little too used to it, I guess.
Okay. Michelle, anything you want to add on to this?
Well, I think Sarah and Allie made a lot of really good points. I don't want to echo, but I think it's interesting that Steven Universe Future is very, very like not subtle about any of them. Like as much as I wouldn't say Steven Universe was subtle, I feel like this is like an extra kind of on the nose that I kind of don't mind, because the clarity of the message to me doesn't take away of like the impact or reward of getting the message. And I say honestly, like I was connecting way more with all the prickly pear messaging stuff than Little Homeschool. But I can see like Sarah was saying, like I think part of the issue for Steven is he's like 16. That's like about when a lot of stuff really changes, or at least like it happens to be the first real time. And I think the first real time, like Sarah was saying, is like the hardest, right? Because you have nothing to base it off of. Everything is just changing. It's scary and it's all new. So you don't know what's going to happen after or if anything's going to be okay. Once you go through that once, you have kind of a benchmark to be like, well, okay, like it won't be that bad this time because like I'll know what to expect. I think that's part of why it's so hard for Steven. And maybe also just because, like, Steven, his identity is so tied to Beach City and just, like, the people he knew there. And they're all kind of leaving at the same time, too, which is, like, a lot also. Like, if it was one person, if it was, like, just Lars leaving, that'd be one thing. But, like, everyone's splitting up the band. Sadie, Lars aren't together. Like, yeah, but I think, like, it's just because, like, a lot of people are leaving at the same time. It's the first time Steven's having to really deal with this. And also, like, maybe the fact that he also doesn't know what he wants to do. Like, if everyone was leaving, but he knew what the next chapter of his life looked like, clearly, he would be moving right along with them, and he'd be more fine with it. Because he doesn't know. He's like, oh, no, everyone else knows, and I don't know. This is terrible, you know? So, I get it. It's real-life stuff, Steven. It's gonna get better, but I get it. It's hard the first time, especially.
Yeah, it's definitely tough going through it the first time. I do want to loop back to the idea of this show, of this season maybe being even less subtle than previous seasons. I'll say that if this episode has a weak point, I think that Shep being the new character, just laying out all of Steven's feelings in that very charged moment, does feel a little bit like, let's explain the point to you in case you haven't figured it out by Steven being awkward around Lars and Sadie already. Like, Sarah?
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit bad. I thought they wasn't needed. I think they might have just wanted to give Shep more lines because they were new and they were kind of a big deal just by their existence, unfortunately. But I don't know if this was the right way to do it.
Yeah, that part is a little off. We can talk about Shep in general. It seems like you guys were pretty enthusiastic about them in the opening thoughts. Anybody want to talk more about if anything in particular they liked about Shep here?
Everything.
Define everything, Michelle, please.
Their design, like their rapport with Sadie, the fact that they're referred to as Sadie's partner, their voice, like the whole package is just so good. And this is the only third non-binary person I can think of in children's animation, so it's like, yes! More!
And this is like a very explicit one, and it's like,
yeah, very
like
explicit.
I find that like a lot of non-binary characters are usually like alien or different somehow. This is just a person, and this is great.
Human.
Yeah.
That's such a good point, Sarah. This is the evolution. Finally, we can have human people, and it's not gonna. The world's not gonna explode.
Yeah, Shep's still just a person, and it's fine.
Imagine having human representation in a space opera about gem people.
Never. It'll never happen.
God. It's just, and also I love that they made an effort of using their pronouns a lot in the show. Like, hey, singular they pronouns are fine. Like, they work.
They're easy to say. Don't worry.
Haven't been saying them all conversation this podcast.
And like even Lars, a person who like we know was kind of a jerk back in the day, even he's totally fine with using them, you know. So it's
like he's not a jerk like that.
The way that he and Sadie were done so maturely made me very happy.
Yeah,
you see how much they've grown too.
Yeah, Lars and Sadie were an interesting relationship to look at here. Just briefly, I do want to mention Shep is voiced by India Moore, who is a trans non-binary actress who has a role on Pose.
I know India. Yeah. She's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so a good, very strong debut on Steven Universe for them. But yeah, let's talk Lars and Sadie here. So we have, the opening where they're relatively cordial, even though like, you can sense Lars is still a little bit, uneasy, but he gets through it. But then later we get the whole revelation of them talking out their stuff off screen. And of course, in a very meta situation, Steven is very angry that off screen developments happened between two
Without
characters.
him.
He wanted to be consulted about this. But
he's the number one Lars Sadie shipper. He's always been the number one.
He really has.
It's so terrible
this-
because they're his neighbors, Steven.
Yeah, it's kind of really mean, but also like you get why he as a child did it.
Yeah, no, it's true. But now he's 16. He really needs to stop.
He needs to
Yeah.
chill.
yeah, the real life shipping is never a good idea, and here especially, it gets to very awkward moments.
Like when he started blaming Lars, I was like, all right, this time you need to see a doctor.
What?
When Lars was walking away from the concert and Steven was like, Lars, are you really okay with this? He's like, yeah, are you okay? I was like, oh, Lars
that
got
was
him.
really good.
And like, by the way, when Steven does that to Lars, like, oh, it's you who has your emotions bottled up. Like, that's a moment that it's like, okay, I get what's going on with Steven here. I don't need Shep to explain it later after the fact. Like, I'm seeing it.
Yeah, no, that was enough.
Yeah, like that was a very
Like-
clear representation of, hey, look, Steven is.
Yeah,
pushing.
and I'm not saying like that is a mean way. I just don't know. I really think they were trying to give Shep more lines, and they couldn't.
Yeah.
And that feels important that Shep talks in this episode more. Like it feels important to me.
Yeah.
But this doesn't feel like the best way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There was an attempt was made.
Mhm.
This
The moment where they have to, it's Lars and Sadie have to explain, like, look, we talked about it in private because we wanted to keep that private, and then like everybody around them is, feeling awkward about being witness to this. Like, I think Jenny like kicks the sand or something. So that was all done pretty effectively in terms of making things as awkward as possible as teen stuff and relationship stuff goes.
I do not miss being 16. I'll just put that out there. I
Agreed.
really don't.
Any other Lars Sadie moments you guys want to highlight here?
Is this the place to say I love Sadie's new model?
Yes!
I just really like her model. And I really like that she kind of has her, like,
Hair up and
Yeah.
shoes, and she's just chill and
Oh.
happy and like knows herself better. So good.
yeah. And I just love that she's like singing happy songs now.
Yeah, instead of angry songs.
It's such a good, like,
Yeah.
change.
Talk about how to glow up.
Yeah. And like I'm so happy that like I was so worried when they first went on stage, like the way like the actors and like the way the way the voice actors like were talking and the way they were saying things like made it be like, is this gonna be bad? And then they sung it like,
Because
oh, it's
Steven
fine.
made it so awkward
Right.
with his
And
like intro.
Steven made it awkward. It's his fault.
Yeah, and it was just like, oh, everything's fine. Okay,
You
cool.
had my boy. You need to stop.
I will say Sadie's new song is hands down my favorite song from Future so far.
Agreed.
It was a really good.
It was such a surprisingly nice, lovely song. And I feel like the best Steven songs are the ones you can take to heart.
Well,
and I think this one definitely qualifies there.
This was just a Rebecca Sugar song. This is the most pure Rebecca
Was it
Sugar
a
song
Rebecca
I've had in a long
Sugar? It
time.
could have been
Just a
something.
Rebecca
maybe,
Sugar
maybe
song.
it was Rebecca.
Well,
Well,
like-
it's great. So good job, whoever did it.
Well, I mean, like,
Queen.
whoever wrote it, like, I just feel like this embodies, like, the things I feel like whenever we get a song that she wrote. Like, this is just, like, pure and simple and, like, really happy. And, like, maybe it wasn't her. I'm just saying, like, they captured that energy I feel when I get those, like, early Adventure Time
Had
songs.
big Rebecca Sugar energy. Whoever wrote
Yeah.
it.
I think it's a thing.
did.
Isn't that a thing at this point?
Probably.
Yeah, I
It
guess
should
it
be.
if it wasn't already.
I have the episode credits up. You are correct. Lyrics by Rebecca
Oh.
Sugar. So congrats.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
Well,
it's-
another slam dunk.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love the quote. I don't remember what the exact quote was, but when Lars and Sadie were like trying to explain to Steven, they're like, "Hey, we talked it out," and he was like, "She knows I miss her, but she also knows I love her. I love that she found someone better for her." And I was like, "Oh, that's so beautiful."
That takes so much to say too, because
Yeah.
like as much as like I feel Lars and Sadie was such a pivotal ship in the show, part of that was because it was so bad. And Lars was so stupid and insecure, and Sadie was so like hungry. and like took things too far, like with the island stuff, which Steven mentions in this episode. And like it was just kind of terrible, and like you kind of hope they grow up and get to a place where maybe they can reconcile. But the fact that they grow up and reconcile, and it turns out that things have changed and they've changed, and as they've changed, it's just not what they want anymore. That was like such a nice, graceful way to just kind of be like, look, we're always going to be friends and care about each other, but like this is not what we need from each other.
I just realized he did mention that island. I thought when he said if we'd been stranded on an island together, I thought he was talking about when Stefani was in space.
Well, that also happens.
Man, Steven and getting stranded in places. What a predicament that happens too often.
Yeah, so I do like that Lars like kind of admits like I wasn't the best friend for Sadie, even when we were kind of into each other, and it's great she can start fresh with somebody else who likes her unconditionally and treats her really nice from the start. Like, it takes a lot to say that, and so good job, Lars. You've grown a lot.
Yeah, but the Lars character development from season 1 to now is really incredible when you think about it.
It is incredible. He has a nice jacket now, too. I'm just saying. His style's improved. No more scary snake shirt.
And he's got space friends, so he's gonna go out into space with graduated gems. Briefly, the off-colors make their appearance in this. I don't think anyone talks, but Michelle, do you know the names of the off-color gems by any chance?
Oh no! I only remember Pat Parach's name. I swear it's been like 2 years since they
You don't remember any of them? It's Pat Paracha, the Rutile twins.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
It's Fluorite.
Yes. Fluorite is Polygrandma.
Polygrandma.
And who's the one with like the pearl something fusion? What's her name?
Starts with an R.
No, you said that.
It starts with an R.
No, I said
Rhodonite.
Rhodonite. Bingo.
twins. Oh, Rhodonite and Rutile. Oh, right,
Yeah,
there's two R.
Two R names, yeah. There, you got them.
Ta-da!
Good job.
Well, no, I got all of them except Rhodonite.
Yeah.
We did it.
3 out of 4.
Yeah, we got it.
75% have graduated from off-color remembering.
Yeah, we graduated from
I mean, that's what got me to school, so we're good.
School.
Yeah.
It's weird to me. I went back to what I was gonna say. I figured it out. It's weird to me that he thinks he's done with gem stuff. Like that quitting running the school is one thing, but like when are the diamonds gonna come? There's definitely stuff going on in space and the universe, and it's weird to me that he feels like he has no direction because he has literally anyone outside in space.
This almost feels like a commentary on like, or maybe it will be in the future, on like how you can't just choose what parts of you are yourself sometimes. Like you can't just move past like and I mean like that in maybe a representation way. Like you can't just be like part of the community without being part of the community, essentially. Like you can't be gay without being gay in this world that he's in. And I think, and I don't know if they're gonna go like bad with that. I just think that like might be an interesting commentary on that. How like he's being like, I'm not a gem anymore, but like you are, Steven. And that unfortunately matters for the good and the bad.
You got work to do, boy. You have to check in, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's like, and I
so much work to do.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like he deserves that, and like I'm saying it sucks that this happens to him, that he's part of this system that where he's a gem, so he has to do certain things. But I mean, like, that's kind of life. That's kind of how it is, and I think it's another part of growing up.
Wait, Allie, were you gonna say something?
He's a gem, but he's also like not leader of like the diamonds, but they listen to him, like whatever he says. He has a lot of influence, and he needs to put it to better, like not better use up, but like he needs to keep it up and keep it going everywhere.
Unfortunately, like because people are going to come to him. When
is like he gonna meet the president, and they're gonna be
when is that happening?
Going into space without our permission?
Well, we've made it like
you don't work for NASA.
We made it like 5 or 6 seasons without involving the government. I really don't.
I prefer don't bring the government in, honestly.
That's what's gonna happen next year, impeachment, and then he becomes the new president.
Steven Universe version of the president, because I think it would just make you sad.
It's fine. I'm already no.
But yeah, that's a good discussion on like what all of this represents in terms of Steven. dropping school, because like on the surface, like it's okay. I'm tired of introducing new people into my life just to let them leave and go off do their own thing. It hurts too much, but like there's definitely deeper stuff that you can mine out of that. So I appreciate hearing other interpretations on that. Let's hear anything else from Little Graduation that we need to talk about. We get a check-in with some of the other townies. I mean, for example, we get the news that the suspects are breaking up, and we have a little brief moment with Jenny, who has an online business making jackets for phones.
Those are awful.
Oh my god, I love it. It's so cute. It's so specific.
I appreciate that they have little phones for the phone
Really
jackets.
cute, but no one's gonna buy them.
Everyone's gonna buy them. Don't say that. She's gonna sell
Meanwhile,
out. They're
Steven's
gonna
like,
be so
everyone on the
good.
planet wants one of those. I'm like, is that gonna be his next move? He's gonna help the online business and just make him millions of
be
dollars.
the manager.
Yeah, you use his powers for persuasion to business.
Oh Lord.
You need these phone jackets for all your employees. Just buy them.
Sour Cream is the DJ, which is obvious. Buck went to medical school. Good for him.
And he'll be
Did not
saving
see that
lives in
coming.
20 years.
In 20 years, yeah.
Buck always subverts expectations.
That's true. He does.
Yeah, Buck in general has always been portrayed as smarter than he looks. So good for him for using that. So yeah, they're breaking up, and Sadie and Shep perform their song together. Looking forward. This instrument I had never seen before, and eventually I saw somebody commented that it was an electronic wind instrument. It looks pretty cool. I want to see someone play that in real life. But
It's just an electric. It looks like it might be an electric clarinet or something.
could be that too.
Ooh. I didn't know this existed.
No,
I'm
I'm not sure if it does, Michelle.
Oh, I hope so.
And if it does, it's
fun.
probably like more. I don't know. I don't know what this is. I've never seen one either.
It is some sort of like clarinet, like wind instrument thing, but I don't know.
But yeah, I guess
It has to have
every instrument can be electronic, I guess. So the good for
I guess,
opening
yeah.
us up to a whole new frontier of musical instruments.
new musical numbers.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if this is okay to read out loud, but Sarah mentions in the chat, someone is sobbing outside my window, which is very accurate for a Steven Universe podcast. Just so
Yeah, I don't want to.
Oh.
It's me right now thinking about this.
Allie, you're visiting. Wow.
Yeah, it's a surprise. Oh god, what is this
Sorry,
instrument?
Michelle.
You can cut that out, Alex. I don't know.
No, that was really.
Look, I think someone crying is a good segue between Little Graduation and Prickly Pear, okay? So I'm leaving it in. Wait, is it?
There is crying in that episode.
Lots of people. I mean, Steven cries a lot when he gets hit by those cactus spikes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So does Pearl.
Yeah. So let's dig into Prickly Pear a little bit here. So I want to start with Steven venting, because I feel like this is a thing as well that happens in relationships, right? That like you are friends with someone and you need to let off steam, but then what happens when the friend figures out the steam that you have been letting out? And Steven handles this in exactly the way that I think most people would in their first experience with this, very awkwardly and like trying to keep it from being revealed. And the gems figure it out and they get distracted and hurt. And at the end, it just ends with they want to talk. And Steven is just like, I think I've said enough, because he knows the damage he's done. I don't know how you guys felt about how this side of Steven was done, because I think that we've seen frustrated Steven before, but this is perhaps some of the most frustrated we've seen him. Allie, I don't know what you feel about how this episode did it.
Definitely, I think that they at least have the pacing right, because like we've seen Steven mad with the gems. Like before I linked in the server, just before the episodes came out, like all the time Steven got mad before Steven Universe Future premiered, and like you see most of it stems, like especially with the gems, from stuff they kept from him for a long time, whether it was like personal or stuff about rose pink diamond or whatever. So it makes sense to me that he wouldn't want to like tell them how he's feeling, especially when it relates to them, because A, he wouldn't want them to feel bad, and B, he would feel bad getting that out in the open to their faces, I think. I think you're right. It's what anybody would do in that situation for the first time, especially at that age. I don't blame him. And these are like people who raised him also, well, helped raise him. So it makes it especially difficult. I thought it was done well. I really hope he does either talk to Gems or Connie or a therapist one day, because he has he got a lot of issues. He needs a lot of tissues for all the issues he has.
Yeah, notable at the beginning of this episode, one of the plants is named Connie, so he also feels a bit abandoned by Connie, I think.
Yeah.
Michelle, how do you feel about how this episode portrayed the healthiness of Steven's dealing with his emotional issues?
I loved it, but it was so cringy in that, like, I understand this and I hate watching this with all these characters I love.
I'm in this picture and I hate this.
Yeah. But it's like, especially because like Steven is such a teenager, and it's great because it's like, yes, Steven logically would have all these issues right now. This is very like, yeah, and his hormones are going crazy, and like it makes total sense. Like he'd be more frustrated and more angry and not know what to do. But again, it's also hard to watch. I think like there are two separate things going on that I uncomfortably enjoy, I guess. One of them is definitely like Steven, like there's I guess like one of the morals of that episode is like the energy you project into the universe and onto other people has real consequences, especially if they're younger and more impressionable than you. And that is something to really consider, like how you present yourself to the world and other people, because that can have significant bad repercussions, even if you don't mean it to, which is like not a thing I see a lot of people talk about, but that's like so real. And I think the way they use Cactus Steven to manifest that visually was so smart, honestly, even though, again, it's not subtle. But I think it's necessary, and I'm like 100% here for that. I think the second thing the episode really gets into is like Steven as a teenager and his relationship with the mom Gems is one that like he's finding this place where like he wants to be more independent and do his own thing, and he knows his mom Gems so well that like he knows like their deepest kind of like things that like can come off as kind of annoying, and he lays all that out. He's like, Garnet always acts like she knows the best, and Pearl will like get upset and think it's her fault, and I think she's so cool and mature now. I mean, that's like the deepest, darkest part of Steven that like grouches about those things, but it's a real part of him because he's known them in pretty much his whole life, and he's a teenager. He gets mad about stuff. So, like, managing those feelings, too, and trying to do more on his own, like, makes perfect sense for where he is at his age. So, it's just, like, all that stuff's really uncomfortable and not fun to watch, but it's also kind of therapeutic, and it's sort of like, yes, the whole time. Because, like, the more I see of Steven's issues, the more I'm like, okay, like, at least we are really getting into this, because, like, this is believably what I'd expect if we want to keep a semblance of, like, realism in this show, and keeping, like, the evolution of the messages we're trying to progress on, like, a personal level. Steven should be going through all this, and so I'm glad that he is, you know? Like, if everything was perfect, like, it'd be so boring. So, like, I'm glad we're getting into it.
No, I totally agree, and I think that Ali mentioned the video of Steven being mad previous in the series, and I do think it's important to note that like we've seen these cracks in Steven's personality before. I mean, the thing that comes to mind to me is like Mindful Education. We see him on the verge of like his first mental breakdown there, and he like gets through that moment, but honestly, it's still creeping up to today. And in addition to what Michelle talked about with dealing with his relationship with the crystal gems, as Like also he talks in that monologue on the beach, which is a very beautiful scene, by the way. Like just them sitting on the beach together in the sunset.
It really is.
It's a good, a lot of effort done for something that doesn't have much movement. But that monologue talking about like, you know, everyone is moving on. I don't know what my purpose is anymore. Like laying out stuff that we have inferred from previous episodes, but it's him actually expressing that stuff out loud. And like literally going like, why do I need to be needed? Like the never-ending desire for a purpose, and right now that's something that's eluding him. It's like all this stuff mixes together into a cocktail that he's just unable to handle at this point, and it manifests into Cactus Steven, like you said, Michelle, with like exuding bad energy into the world. Sarah, do you have any additional thoughts to add on to what we get out of Steven here?
Honestly, I just feel like this is the holidays. This is a week that's been, for me, very emotional and very difficult. And if there's any week that has an episode with Angry Steven and lots of angry emotions about parental figures and just things changing and stuff, like this is the week to have it. I don't think
that's a good move.
Yeah, it's in keeping.
Yeah. It feels accurate, and it feels... I wish it was more cathartic. I wish it was as cathartic for Steven as it is for me.
Well, like that's the thing, right? Like it ends on kind of a cliffhanger situation where like
he's dying for our sins. It's Christmas.
I mean, this isn't the first time we've compared Steven to Jesus on this podcast. I don't think so. But yeah, like it just kind of hangs there, and that's also kind of representing like how this stuff happens in real life too. Like it doesn't really solve. There's not really a way to solve it in that moment. It's just kind of something that lingers for a while, and you just gotta kind of stew with it. And that's the energy that end of the episode gives, and I think that's like so perfect. But also like it hurts to watch, but because it
hurts to watch,
because it's a relatable thing, and so I think that this really
that's my son.
Yeah, it also hurts because it's someone you care about, right? Like that's also an important piece of this.
And because it's relatable. It's like she does everything to make you hurt. Rebecca, why?
Steven Universe, it does everything to make you hurt.
Rebecca, I'm bald.
Something crying is funny or something.
Did you see Rebecca? I'm bald.
Yes.
Allie's bald from all the sad.
The wig got snatched or something.
What's
the memes?
I was very confused. Okay, I was like, Allie,
every time.
bald.
I am now. After today, I was. Oh my god, Michelle blew my mind when she was talking about what was it? The stuff that Steven says specifically about the gems, like specific things about the gems. I feel like either that anger comes from the fact that he's envious of some stuff, or he sees himself in that kind of thing. Like at least with, like I feel he might. Obviously, he learns from them, but I feel like he might, see that he like blames himself like Pearl does or used to, and get annoyed with that, and that he's like envious of Amethyst's collectedness or seemingly, and Garnet's wisdom, but. I don't even know anymore. I've thought about it, and I was like, "Oh Lord!"
Well, and I think that,
or maybe also just like when you're a teenager, like, and you like get to that place where you're just really mad with your parents, like, like they have those certain quirks that if you fixate on them can feel kind of annoying, and you can resent it a little. And because they've been in his life so long, like he has those with them. And most of the time he doesn't have to think about it or like make it a big deal. But like when he's so lost and doesn't know what to do, and he's named all these plants after people because he's such an empty nester and he cannot handle that they're leaving, I think like it makes sense that like he would stew on that too, because they're the closest people to him.
Right.
Those three. So like they're gonna get the full force of his like frustration.
Yeah, like with Pearl, that was a little rude.
Yeah.
I get where it comes
from. And see, this is the thing as well that I find so like it relatable. It's like you have your friends, but like no one is perfect, right? So like if you're close enough of a friend with someone, they have flaws, but you work around it because they have so many other traits that you enjoy, and that's a totally fine way to have a friendship. Like you're aware of that stuff and you work your way around it because you really appreciate the company of that person. And I think that's something that Steven deals with well. Like we know that he loves the crystal gems with like all his heart,
Mhm.
but also like he's aware of the stuff that gets to them, and usually he works his way around them. But like in these weak moments, he just lets it all out, and because he knows it deep down, even though he works around it on a daily basis. So like that's a part of having a relationship with someone that also like I don't think gets talked about enough, and is something that happens if you end up losing control.
Ross was just so harsh because he was like, I have to pick up the pieces after she falls apart. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I will say, like, while we're like pretty harsh on Steven, be like, Steven, he's saying all these bad things about his mom's. He did sort of try to say it in confidence to a cactus, and not to their face.
That's
Which
his
is
form
like,
of therapy.
I appreciate that. Yeah, like the cactus is maybe the one thing around that isn't really involved in his life, so maybe it makes it easier for him to talk to the cactus than a person who really knows him too.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. It's pretty much like having a therapist, except it's a plant that you birthed from.
Yeah, it's your son, and it's gonna replicate your negative thoughts. Unfortunately,
yeah.
I don't know if it's
two other gems.
It's more just a parrot.
That too.
Yeah, why does it do that? Because the Steven watermelon could just mumble.
Yeah, who knows?
Oh, I will say that the first time it talked, I was so horrified. I like couldn't handle
me too.
it.
He said, "I am."
The voice was so scary and raspy, and it was such a shock. And I was like,
just like,
no.
excuse me.
Yeah.
His name.
Did
He
not
just said,
speak
"I
words
am."
yesterday.
He realized its existence, and it was terrifying.
It's
God.
terrifying, Sarah. It's so scary.
It's sentient. It has to die. Honestly, I thought he was gonna have to like debate killing it. I thought that was what the episode was gonna be.
Well,
there's a moment where he like sets it down, stares at it. I'm like, is he gonna kill it when the gems go away? And then thoughts on it. Yeah, but it got real dark for a second.
He did murder a pumpkin before.
That's true, he did.
But I thought he was gonna like. I thought he was gonna like fight it in like this terrifying scene, and it was gonna be
It's
like
totally coming. We won't get it.
Oh, we haven't seen that worm yet. Maybe the ultimate bad team up still happens.
Alaskan bullworm. I'm sorry. The worm. I'm so curious about that stupid looking thing.
Did we already talk about what that might be?
I feel like it's a gem, but I don't know because
like
Earth
is
just don't look like that.
Could it be the cluster? Because it's like real big.
Well, I think it'd be more colorful if it was the cluster. It's like a brown color, isn't it? I can't remember anymore.
I thought it was in like shadow. That was all.
Like mesh. It was a mesh of different looking things.
I think it's some kind of sneaky gem thing. Wants to kill Steven, but
Does
that's
anyone
all.
have any thoughts on the corrupted Steven theory?
What do you? What's that?
That
Steven's gonna get corrupted by all this mental breakdown stuff and turn into a monster.
And he turns into the worm.
I don't think so.
How corruption works?
No,
he is half human though.
I think all we're really seeing is just teenage emotions and him not being able to control it.
It's just like normal, honestly. Like he has magic powers that like hyperbolize the situation, but all of these things stem from very normal feelings. Like I don't think anything Steven's doing is not normal. It's cringy as heck, but it's like kind of how it goes when you're that age.
Yeah, it's just.
Do we even know? Like, I mean, we know the diamonds caused the corruption, but that was with like some sort of blast, right? That wasn't just with like emotions. Not
it was
at
like a
least
weapon.
Not with just feeling emotions. He has to like physically do something to himself, probably.
Right.
Although, not in that, you know what?
Although we did introduce pink volleyball earlier this season, where like her emotional trauma is causing physical.
Right. Yeah, that's why I was like, hold on.
So like it's there, but you guys are right as well. Like that there is a validity to this just focusing on his emotions. Although I will say, like adding this extra layer of that causing it to be even more self-destructive because like he has all these powers that lose control when he gets like this. That's an additional thing to look at, and like what that represents, right? Like you end up hurting the people you love, usually emotionally, but in this case maybe physically. Who's to say?
Both.
But And also, like, while we're on the topic of the intro, like, now we have this batch of episodes and we have most of the villains revealed. It's very interesting that, like, Jasper, she lays out, like, look, you want to be a controlling person, I'm not into that, and that's why I'm out. Bluebird, both of them are, like, making fun of Steven for, like, trying to be the leader of the gems, and they just want to do their own thing and are against this whole situation. And then we have Prickly Steven over here, who is revealing all of Steven's inner turmoil. And you even have the bad Lapises, who are also kind of getting the sense of Steven being controlling and that being a bad thing. So I just find it interesting that, like, all the villains that we've revealed so far are kind of there primarily to, like, expose Steven's deepest fears about himself and bring those to light. So it's quite a strategy for bringing out antagonists.
What is the worm supposed to represent?
What does the worm represent? I don't know. Maybe Steven's feeling extra useless like a big worm right now.
Oh, damn.
I don't know.
It's wait in the opening, are both of the Lapises there? Because, like,
I think
what
so.
was clear to me about the ending of, I mean, what I also loved about the ending of this is that when Steven gave Cactus Steven a hug, he was like, he repeated him being like, I'm sorry. So they, like, did kind of forgive each other. So what's gonna happen to make him go, like, rogue?
Maybe, I'm thinking maybe they don't. Maybe that was just a sneaky, like, oh, you thought they were all bad, but now it's fine.
Yeah, because the other, one of the Lapises came to Little Homeschool at the end of the episode.
And Jasper honestly does seem, like, fine with Steven right now.
I mean, there's in the, like, full video for the opening of Steven, there's, like, evil Peridot. Like, that's so not real.
There is?
Wait,
well, in the original intro, like, remember that standard intro, like, they have Peridot in the villain's, like, screen, and, like, she turns into you know, our little green
She
fellow,
was
so.
back then, though.
Like,
oh, that's true, yeah.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, this could easily just be, like, they're a villain for a second.
For one episode.
Yeah.
And the real villain is our struggles to control our inner emotions.
Yes. Inner demons are the only demons. I'm sorry, I'm just, like, in a mood today for some
Look, these
reason.
episodes are especially the kind to bring you into a mood, so I don't blame you.
That's true.
Also holidays.
Yeah, and that too. It's all adding up.
A lot has happened.
Other random stuff from this episode. It opens with us introducing to the garden. The crystal gems are bringing him dirt, and that's all very cute.
It's so creepy.
Wait, creepy?
You don't think it's creepy that he named all his plants after
that
his
particular
seed?
part.
It's so
Oh, not the bringing the dirt
creepy.
part.
It is so creepy that he named them all after people.
And he's like, "Oh, you're not gonna leave me, are you?" It's like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
Like,
And as Lars pointed out, he can literally see him whenever he wants.
yes.
Yeah, he literally just to pop out of Lars's head, and Lars it seems has come to terms with that.
He's coming to terms because he can't stop it.
He's a portal now.
He's a
it's just
portal.
happening.
I'm not sure if Lars has come to terms with the fact that he's immortal, though. But still, that's
That
a
is
thing.
yeah.
true. We'll take more
Immortal
time.
portal. Sorry.
That's probably a better reason for him to hang out with the off colors because they won't, like, you know,
Die?
they'll age forever together. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems actually like a pretty good idea, honestly.
The no die squad.
Yeah. Well, what a fun gang to hang around.
You won't die either? Me too! Best friends.
A jacket.
This just scares me because we've had like a lot of episodes with like focusing on the townies and how they've grown up and how they've moved on. I don't want a Ronaldo episode.
Oh, boy.
I don't think we're getting it. Don't jinx it. I mean, we did get Onion. I
But
don't
he
know.
has a new Ohime-sama.
God.
Save it for the series finale.
A gem-sama.
Oh no. Not that I'm against gem-human relationships, but Ronaldo.
Yeah, but not that
no.
one. Not-
Not that one.
If there's any justice in the world, like
You know there's not.
I know there's not. That's why I'm starting with this. If there's any justice in the world, we'd have like, because there's a 2-year time gap, we'd have someone like transitioned and no one would talk about it. Like I just was thinking about that. This is something like Rebecca put like a non-binary character. Like of course she would try to put a trans character in here too.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Sorry, this is like a one-off thought. Like I'm like, wow,
What if?
it's not gonna happen.
I mean,
would only be acceptable.
We can begin talk. I mean, well, we'll talk about what the rest of the season could entail. But just wrapping up some random stuff here from Prickly Pear. Garnet does briefly say, like, "Hey, keep a close eye on the cactus." So she's got something in the predictor. Honestly, we haven't seen Garnet use her predicting powers a lot in like the second half of the show. So I guess a good reminder that it exists. Let's hear what. Yeah, we've got the speaking on the beach together. We do have some fun fighting stuff happen at the end of this episode. Like, honestly, we haven't seen the Crystal Gems fight in a little bit, so like seeing them fight a legitimate threat is cool. Like, Bluebird got beaten really easily because of Alexandrite, right? But this one actually gave them some tough stuff. Pearl gets hurt by the cactus multiple times, and she makes some good faces. Pearl is always good comic relief.
Why do needles hurt hard light projection?
And they don't poof.
Yeah.
She should have just poofed every time.
I mean, they're not that bad, you know. If it
No,
went
but that's
through her
my
whole
point.
body.
She's not real. Michelle, she's not.
I think they can still feel stuff even with light projection
Well, like,
bodies.
it's like
in one of like the very first
magic.
episodes, weren't they like, "Oh, we don't feel pain" or something?
Well, I think it's something where like it depends on like what you allow yourself. Because like Amethyst allows herself to digest and stuff, so like maybe they've gotten to a point where they're okay with a little bit of pain. I don't know, just to feel alive.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Oh my god.
I was going down like a different route.
I wish they must feel stuff because they'd want to smooch people and they'd want to have a good smooch. So of course they can feel stuff.
Do the pain reactors and the smooch reactors hang out in the same place?
I think so.
Anything else from Prickly Pear you guys want to mention that we haven't talked about?
Reactors.
I want to know who voiced the cactus just because it was so scary.
I thought it was Zach.
Who voiced the cactus?
Was it?
Zach
Oh my god, no, of course it was Zach.
Yeah, I mean that seems like the logical thing. I can pull up the credits here.
He is very
Yeah,
talented.
please pull it up to make sure we're right. But
He did voice Watermelon Steven, and he is a very talented little young man. God,
does
he's
he voice
old now?
He might voice
He's our
Pumpkin too,
age.
actually. Yeah.
He does, yeah.
that's really funny that he was voice Cactus.
He has to.
Everything he licks has his voice. That's the rule.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So
It's just
Lars, I guess, but he cried on him, so it's different.
yeah.
like just the whole thing of accidentally crying on a cactus is like such a roundabout way to do this, but
Yeah, why a cactus? I mean, I know she was like, it's the most resilient plant on Earth, but I feel like we're having an overload of cactuses with like animation this year. First She-Ra, and now.
Huh. Well, you're right. There was a shit.
That's the two things. That's not an overload.
It's two things. Not too many, but that is two things.
Thanks for filibustering for me, guys. Cactus Steven was voiced by Zach Callison, so there we go. We've got confirmation.
Here we go. The mystery.
Wow. How dare you say we were filibustering?
By the way, can I mention, Peridot is in featured voices. She hasn't really had a role this season yet, okay? So
Yeah.
and Lapis gets kept in the additional voices, even though she actually had an episode anyways.
And a song.
She was... Wow. Anyways. So, as we enter this upcoming hiatus, we know there are going to be episodes in 2020. We don't know how much are left. But like, considering what we've gotten of this first part of the season, do you guys have any expectations for the next part, or just your general feelings as we're leaving Steven Universe for 2019? Michelle, you want to begin with final thoughts here?
Gotta find out what's going on with Wormy. Gotta figure out if they're gonna tag team. Steven's got to deal with Wormy. Steven's got to deal with all his pink anger powers, which means dealing with the deeper interpersonal stuff with himself. And I'm assuming he's going to figure out what he's going to do next. Like, I was thinking when Allie was talking earlier about, like, how Steven being a gem means he can never entirely pull himself away from, like, gem stuff, especially because he's part diamond, so he has more responsibility because he has more influence, and people listen to him. I guess, like, maybe one scenario could be that, like, he wants to pull away from, like, the more granular stuff, and get to a place where, say, like, Little Homeworld is sustainable, and he only has to go in for, like, very specific big things every once in a while, but he doesn't have to be, like, constantly involved in gem affairs. Like, I don't think he's close to that anytime soon, but I do think it would be nice for Steven to get a little more of his, life back, as, like, his human life back. He hasn't had a lot of time recently to just be a teen kid with teen kid problems. And I don't know if he ever, maybe that's too much to ask. Like, maybe he can never quite go back just because, like, so much has happened. But it'd be nice if he had a little more choice to maybe pursue other things for a while. Because, like, he's done so much. I feel like he does deserve a break if it's at all possible.
Okay, so Wormy is number 1 on your list, and number 2 is dealing with Steven's emotional issues. Got it.
Yeah.
Sarah, final thoughts on...
I'm just completely on board with calling this Wormy. Like, this is
Yeah,
Wormy now.
that's all we got right now, so let's
I'm
roll
gonna
with
stick
it.
with Alaskan bullworm.
Oh, Alaskan Bullworm, that's good too.
These are competing SpongeBob worm names we have going on, Allie.
Yeah.
You're either Team Wormy or Team Alaskan Bullworm.
What if I call it Shelby?
Can I go with Big, Scary, and Pink?
Yeah, I don't know if it's pink though. Is it a pink worm?
The coloring on that
I
screen
mean,
is
Steven
off,
is pink.
so it could be any color, really. Sarah, final
Steven's
thoughts
pink.
on the upcoming rest of the season?
I don't have much. No, I just really am happy Shep exists, and really happy Shep is in this episode, and given their due, and really, like, I mean, like, obviously they were into it well. I'm just glad it got into the episode and got onto TV like this. This is awesome.
I hope they stay a main side character.
Yeah.
Me
Yeah,
too.
is Shep going to end up having more appearances in Mystery Girl debate?
I mean, it's not going to be hard.
Probably yes. Yeah, it's not that hard.
I mean, they're already on equal, right? Like, they're both 1-to-1, so...
No, because I think Shep is in the intro, so that's like 2 appearances, technically. Yeah.
Are they? I mean, are they?
Yeah,
wow.
I
I was
think
thinking of
they
Sadie.
Because
Sorry.
I remember seeing Sadie sitting at a table with someone, and I freaked out because I'm like, oh, I knew it! Sadie sees someone
Oh,
else!
you're right. I'm
So,
gonna
like,
flip it.
They already
sitting with them?
beat Mystery Girl. Yeah.
Oh, I did not realize.
Angry now.
Yeah, I'm angry Mr. Girl was snubbed for the intro, apparently, but okay. So, Allie, final thoughts on what you're expecting for the season, or reactions to what we've gotten so far?
Now I'm expecting more Mystery Girl, because where the heck? I mean, she's been MIA for too long, people. I mean, you guys pretty much covered it. I'm definitely expecting more emotional angst, and also hopefully more, not like responsibility, because clearly he already has a lot of that going on, but I'd like to see how the Diamonds and Spinel may or may not come into play later, because either for stuff like across the universe, or whatever's going to happen on Earth with Team Big, Scary, and Pink and other color people.
Scary.
I'm gonna be so disappointed Wormy's not pink now.
Someone there is pink, right?
I guess.
Like, Jasper's orange, the Bad Lapis is blue,
Jasper's not pink.
Bluebird is like a mix of blue and red. You can just...
Steven will have to fight himself. It won't be Shadow Steven, it'll be Pink Steven.
Well, like, isn't this Cactus Steven kind of fighting himself, though?
Yeah,
sort
it is. Sort of.
I'm gonna.
Well, with that, we will begin signing off with an because that was our reaction, but more well expressed, I hope, during this hour that you've been listening to us, and thanks if you've been listening to us for this long. If you're interested, you can find more of our discussions at overlyanimated.com. As Ali referenced earlier in this podcast, we do have a Discord server that we discuss our shows at, and if you want to join that, you can come to overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can also support us financially via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Scott. Thanks to our Patreon executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Beatrice, Hugh, Michael, and Needle. Besides Steven Universe, we are also covering shows such as Ruby, shows that are ongoing right now. Ruby and...
Well, Ruby's also on hiatus right now.
Yeah, I guess so.
There's an Infinity Train coming up soon.
Infinity Train is coming in
Visions,
January.
More BoJack.
Potentially.
BoJack's at the end of the month.
BoJack.
Yeah.
Or anime coming in the summer at some
More
point.
Fruits Basket at some point,
Owl
yeah.
House will probably
Will-
be
Neverland.
around.
Maybe.
Yeah, Owl
So-
House!
And we have
Jenny's
some
gonna be
end of year
awesome.
stuff coming up. End of year stuff coming
that
up.
is true as well. That
Yeah.
we have our overly animated awards for 2019. If you're listening to this as soon as this is released, then you'll still have a little bit of time to vote. Steven Universe is nominated for several categories, and I think with these episodes, we'll probably get a boost in certain categories. So if you haven't voted yet, go to overlyanimated.com and find the awards post, and you can join in on that as well. But yeah, so while Steven Universe is on hiatus, we will have a lot more shows to talk about, and you can keep following along with us. I would say that there are a lot of shows of similar quality to Steven Universe out there, and so we advise you to check some of them out. But yeah, until we have more Steven Universe episodes to talk about, we'll be back until then. But thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
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 Okay, BRB. I just wanted to check
Okay.
something.
Are they
Save
still
the crying
crying?
person, Sarah!
Shit.
Should put that in our intro from now on. We're gonna talk slow. You can speed us up with your local podcatcher.
We should, to be honest. Just like purposefully talk slow.
Yeah, just like, bringing it back to little graduation, the Polly Worm Gem. She talks super slow. You want to be like that, Alex?
Yeah,
The
exactly.
poly-
Go for
You
it.
she has a name, Michelle.
What's her name?
It doesn't matter. We'll get to that in the podcast.
It's been like 2 years since she's been relevant. I feel bad. I don't
Was she
remember
even
her name.
relevant back then?
Good point.
I mean, she
Sarah.
was when we first.
Okay, we're talking. We can't do this now. We
Yeah,
can't do this now.
let's
We can't do
go.
this now.
Now I am beginning